This is Garis, Masculist, MGTOW flyers, that is 2 3-page essays on the themes of masculism and MGTOW, written by and read aloud by Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. This is flyer number 533, entitled 2 Powerful Reasons Why It's in the Self-Interest of Monoconscious Feminists to become Biconscious. Description. This flyer provides 2 powerful reasons why it is in monoconscious feminists' self-interest to become biconscious. That is, they'll be more likely to keep a male feminist boyfriend if she becomes biconscious and therefore be much nicer to be with, or if he becomes biconscious faster than she does, then she will likely be dumped by him. A monoconscious feminist without a boyfriend will be more likely to get one to help pay for her to have a kid if she is biconscious, since she will then be much nicer and more competitive as a biconscious feminist than will a monoconscious feminist, who is much more likely to rot on the shelf, since men find monoconscious feminazi cunts repulsive and leave them rotting on the shelf. Flyer itself. 2 powerful reasons why it is in the self-interest of monoconscious feminists to become biconscious, by Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. Email profhugodegaris@yahoo.com. Website profhugodegaris.wordpress.com. I divide the monoconscious feminists into 2 groups: those who have boyfriends and those who don't. There's a powerful and different reason for each group why it is in monoconscious feminists' self-interest to become biconscious. Firstly, some definitions for those of you who are not familiar with masculist terminology. A masculist is a men's liber, out to liberate billions of men from decades-long man's slavery by fluffy women. A fluffy, based on the word fluff, is a masculist label for a traditional woman who expects to be able to live off the money and labour of a man for decades of his life, thus manslaving him for decades. Masculists are particularly hateful of fluffy feminists who control the divorce courts, who butcher one father in 4 by stripping him of his kids, his house, half his wealth, stuff, forced to pay child support and often alimony for life to fluffy ex-wives. Monoconscious means that one has had only one's feminist consciousness raised, that is, one has become informed as to how men oppress women. Monoconscious feminists know nothing about masculism, so by definition are monoconscious. If they also knew some masculism, that is, they learned how women oppress men, and in fact worse than vice versa, in brackets, since many of women's oppression of men last decades, for example, man's slavery, paternity fraud, women's hypocritical opposition to the legislation of the para, that's paternity rejection right, given that women already have the mara, aka abortion right, etc., close brackets. That would make them, by definition, biconscious. This flyer is about persuading monoconscious feminists to become biconscious, because it is very much in their self-interest. Why is it in the self-interest of a boyfriended monoconscious feminist to become biconscious? Because she will then be more likely to keep him if she is biconscious, for 2 sub-reasons. The first sub-reason is that if she becomes biconscious, she will become much nicer as a woman than as a monoconscious feminist. It's the experience of the masculists, on the whole, that monoconscious feminists tend to be rather feminazi bitchy because they are angry at men for the ways that men oppress women, which is what feminism teaches them. Since a monoconscious feminist, by definition, is not biconscious, she does not have her anger at men for the ways that men oppress women cancelled by a corresponding masculinist anger at women for the ways that women oppress men, and in fact, worse than vice versa. Biconscious feminists lose their monoconscious anger at men because they can see that women also oppress men, and worse. Thus they see that gender oppression is a two-way street, so their knowledge of masculinist ideas softens their former feminist anger, so they become a lot less feminazi preachy to their initially monoconscious male feminist boyfriends. Thus, as these monoconscious feminists become biconscious, they become nicer as women, so are more likely to keep their boyfriends who prefer their women to be nice. Otherwise, why stay with them? Monoconscious feminists who constantly harp on about how men oppress women tend to be dumped by their male feminist boyfriends, since who wants to be with a misandrist, male-dumping, feminist